27. Hello, welcome. 27 is the one we're on now. And look, we're way over halfway done now. At least you know the last pages are all advertisements for more books and the bibliography and stuff. Oh, not that much of a bibliography. Alright. Oh. I'm trying to figure out where we stopped. Okay. Down here where my proper mark is. Fessinger showed the power of cognitive dissonance at work in another interesting way. He and an associate asked students to help in extremely boring, repetitive material tasks as part of an experiment. Afterward, all the students were asked to tell, individually, another student who was also participating in the same experiment, that the task was rather interesting. What? Okay. Fessinger showed the power of Fessinger showed the power of cognitive dissonance at work in another way. He asked students to help in boring, repetitive tasks. Afterward, all the students were asked to tell another student who was also there that the task was interesting. People have so many damned adjectives in their shit. God knows it. So they just had to ask just to tell another student, hey, yo, this was interesting. To motivate them to tell this lie, some of the first team were offered $1, others $20. The first team were later asked to give their reactions to the task they had to do. Those paid $20 to say it was interesting to another student, admitted they found it boring. Those paid only $1 tended to say that the task was quite interesting, really, and more meaningful than they had imagined. What was happening was that both sets of students had to justify to themselves telling of the lie. Those who had been paid a considerable amount of money only needed to say, I did it for the money. But those who received a pittance couldn't convince themselves that that was the reason for their lie. So they had to convince themselves that they hadn't really lied at all, and that really there was something interesting about the task they had to do. On the same basis, though probably without knowing why, parents tend to find mild rebukes more effective in stopping disruptive behavior in children than heavier threats. If a child is threatened with death and destruction if he crayons on the curtains, he may stop for a moment, but he will think, I only stopped because I was forced to, but he'll still want to do it. If he's gently turned to some other activity, he's more likely to justify his change of activity by saying to himself, well, I didn't want to crayon on the curtains anyway, really. An amusing experiment, first carried out by Smith, then replicated with modifications by Zimbardo, showed that cognitive dissonance can make people start to like eating grasshoppers. Supposedly, as an experiment in widening the range of menu in a military college, people were asked to try eating fried grasshoppers, an idea that no one found appealing. When a pleasant man made the request stressing the voluntariness of its nature, numerous people complied, but most still disliked grasshoppers afterwards. When an obnoxious man made the request, earning the dislike of the participants by the rude manner in which he treated his assistant, far more of those who ate claimed to like grasshoppers afterward. Researchers explain this by cognitive dissonance theory. When the experimenter was a nice guy, the participants could justify their opting to eat something unpleasant by telling themselves that they did it because the man was nice enough, and they wanted to help him. When the man was not the least bit likable, how could they justify eating a food that they weren't even being forced to eat? Only by coming to find the food itself was quite palatable, really, therefore justifying their decision to give it a try. Elliot Aronson has said, dissonance theory does not rest upon the assumption that man is a rational animal. Rather, it suggests that man is a rationalizing animal. That he attempts to appear rational both to others and to himself. Theories of cognitive consistency is from what that quote is taken, says the parentheses. Isn't that called a parenthetical citation? That's called a parenthetical citation, baby. Anyway, this need can considerably color his attitudes. Parenthetical citation. My mommy used to say that word so much. I don't know why. Did she like it? An experiment by Aronson himself shows how effort invested in an activity can alter perceptions of the activity's worth, all in line with dissonance theory. A group discussion on the psychology of sex was announced. Girls who wanted to join it were divided into 3 groups. One group was just given permission to join. The other 2 groups were given some sort of test to see if they were suitable. In one case, the initiation was mild. In the other case, it was strong. The girls being required to recite swear words in front of a male experimenter. After all, the girls were played a tape supposedly of a similar psychology of sex discussion that had been held before. The tape was deliberately made extremely boring. Only the women who had suffered with the severe initiation process said that they found the discussion interesting. Aronson concludes that the effort of... We're losing focus so bad. That's okay. Nope, this is a video game. At the end of the video game, we'll be like totally leveled up, and then when I read the next story, it'll be like, oh my god, let's take it in, and everybody loved it. And that's the way it's going to be. Aronson concludes that the effort put in joining the group could only be reconciled with achieving something that made it worth it. Therefore, it would have been impossible for the women who had been embarrassed to perceive the discussion as boring, to face the fact that they had invested considerable energy in nothing. I mean, we understand the general concept here. It's just like before with the eating of the grasshopper. The man was mean. So if the people had a boring initiation process, they would say it means more. You know, I totally take offense. I take freaking offense, man. I'm taking offense. You know why I'm taking offense? Because at the beginning of the Minecraft series, there's a big long walk on the road, and it's meant to be boring. Yes, indeed, all the things I'm doing are kind of meant to be boring, but it's not because, well, actually it is because boring is meaningful. I mean, they're taking a small scale, using it for behavioral modification, but life itself is a meaningful, boring time. So what are they doing? Are they playing on well, it's just a study in cognitive dissonance. It's not really that deep. I can't wait until I'm smart enough to read young. Then I might be able to understand half these questions I'm having. But we're not there yet, darling. Oh yeah, not yet. I only want to learn how to read out loud. Did you know that for like ever and ever and ever and ever, the humans read out loud? Reading in our head is like barely a couple hundred years old as far as I remember from learning that. So reading out loud is best. And that's why I'm doing this. So they didn't want to believe that they invested all this energy for nothing. Arson. God damn it. Aronson again. Arison finds himself admits. God damn it. We can't do this. Arison himself admits that there could be other explanations for the girl's behavior. Perhaps the very reciting of swear words excited the girls and made them anticipate pleasure. Or, if the initiation had embarrassed them, perhaps the discovery that the discussion was in fact banal, and in not the least threatening, was such a relief that it colored their judgment of the content. But the outcome is still all too obviously the same: defense of something worthless. On the same principle of effort made acquiring reward. On the same principle of effort made requiring reward, Zimbardo, Brim, and Cohn have found that a speaker who has low credibility can often sway an audience over to his side more easily than a speaker with all the right credentials and reputation, if the people in the audience have had to make an effort to get to hear him. To travel a long distance and then to disagree with the expert is not tension-inducing because the expert is usually considered to be worth hearing. But to go out of one's way to hear someone who has no standing and talks nonsense is more difficult to reconcile with one's own intelligence. Therefore, it may be easier to resolve the conflict aroused and the questioning of one's integrity by finding something to agree with the man about. What is dissonant for one may not be dissonant for another. If a person with a strong self-image feels his marriage isn't working, he may be inclined to stick with it like a leech to justify his belief in his own judgment of people, and the effort he has already made to make the relationship work. I can't let it go now. It'll just make the last 6 years seem worthless. Now, the person who has low self-image and who always expects to have everything go wrong will not experience the tension of dissonance in the same situation. Just my luck, he might say. Nothing ever works out for me. The bad relationship confirms what he thinks of himself instead of threatening it. The effects of resolving cognitive dissonance can be far more extensive and harmful than simple self-deception. Henry Dix describes an account of how blank thinking took hold, which illustrates the point. From Licensed Mass Murder. Frau von Breyer-Cat was successfully depicted in the process of regression toward the acceptance of some groups' norms. Or ethos in various social contexts after the people came to power. At mass level, there was the constant uniformed triumphal marches, day-long singing of the people's song. In short, the build-up of a we feeling, the build-up of a we feeling from which no patriotic, decent person could stand aside. On the other hand, the cheer, too, how it now became easier to succumb to the subtlety induced how it now became easier to succumb to the subtly induced blackmail of people pressure through the appearances in offices, through the appearance in offices, industrial plants, etc., of uniformed or at least openly those people believers. In the climate of some country of those days, such people easily became paranoidally regarded and feared as planted secret informers. Well, since I've had to censor so as not to blame the guilty or not to incriminate the guilty, I'll have to describe this. Alright, guys. Once upon a time in history, a bunch of people thought they had the right idea of how to get things done and make the world a better place. So, they made a whole bunch of pictures and got a whole bunch of same looking clothes and started to take over the public social sphere. Then they forced us all to obey them, and then they threw some of us in prison, some of us in jail, some of us in camp, some of us just got killed, it happens over and over and over again, so it really doesn't matter what buzzword I'm allowed to say or call it. But they do that. But what happens when they do that is it builds up a group feeling. We are this, we are part of this, and if you are a decent person, you're part of this too. Now, it's easier on the subtle level to start filtering in the little blackmails that they put into your field of consciousness. Okay? You'll see it everywhere. It's going to be openly blank. Anyway, you get the whole point. So, in the climate of the place in those days, such people easily became paranoidically regarded and feared as secret informers. Okay, so among the populace of the believers of the great new wonderful thing that'll save and change the world, other people who were like rational and intelligent and human would fear that everybody around them, like somebody in there must be a plant, and if I say the wrong thing, oh my God, I'm going to go to jail, get killed, be fined, destroyed. It happens again and 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 again in history, children, so it doesn't even matter what name or current buzzword I put on it. I'm sorry, God, am I getting angry again? Thus, conformity, always a strong social motive, by concluding with those early elements of terror in the shape of authentic representatives of the new and required group ethos, replaced individual rational criticism and moral judgments. Alright, you know what, people? I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. These things make me so mad. I have got so much equanimity to learn. So, maybe I will start singing out the parts that piss me off. Oh. Well, we're going to finish this one paragraph, and we'll stop here with talk, because I don't feel like reading about history no more. Oh my God. How is Grandma going to handle history? Y'all don't want to see me read a history book. Oh, I've got a lot. I can't read a history book. think history is like psychology of humanity itself. And I get mad when we do dumb things. So at any rate, there's the whole element in the public, and what you're supposed to think replaced individuals taking the time to figure out what they believed. People had to vie with one another in public to mouth the right sentiments. At first, a person with an averagely humane conscience would condemn himself for his lack of moral courage and self-betrayal. This became too intolerable. So, the second stage was a denial. Surely there had to be some truth in what the people beliefs and that he had assent to. There must be some truth to the group belief that he had to assent to in his group. Like, there has to be some truth to what they're saying. I'm here, and I have to go along with it, so there must be something right about it. Alright. Whew. Man, I want to do another one. I want to try to get as many in, but as we can tell by the third one, I've deteriorated. Alright, well, till the next